Hi guys, back with another solo episode, and today I'm going to talk about how I structure my own training as a busy coach. Now, the reason I thought I'd record this one is, as you know, this podcast is there for coaches. It's there for coaches to help them with their business, their physique, and everything in between. So it's something I tend to get asked every single week on a Q&A by coaches themselves, like how do I structure my training and how do I kind of slot that into my week. What does that kind of look like? So I thought I'd just do a little episode and kind of talk through that. Not that my training's anything particularly exciting or that my physique's anything exciting, but the general thought process behind that is really talking why it's important to still have a quote unquote journey, as wanky as that sounds, as a coach, and why it is important to look after you, to have sort of physique goals, or at least focus on your fitness, your physique, all those things. Not just because it's your job, and obviously there's an element of you've got to be in shape to some degree as an online coach. I mean, that's what you kind of pay other people. That's what you're paid to do for other people. You should be able to do that to some degree to yourself. You are, in some sense, your business card, but it's also like a deeper message than that. It's also, at the end of the day, it's going to help make you a better coach. It's going to make you feel better. It's going to have a better life. The same reasons that you kind of help your clients out with fitness, they're going to feel better at themselves, how they look, more self-esteem, more confidence, more energy. All those things matter to you as well. It's going to make your business better. It's going to make your check-ins better. It's going to make your relationship with clients and that kind of rapport that you build much better. It's all really, really important. And I think as coaches, we do end up neglecting ourselves to some degree because let's be honest, when you start online coaching, you think I'm going to have all this fucking time. And you do, but all that time gets spent working, and you spend less and less time actually training or looking after yourself. And I think any busy coach that I know, they built their business to a certain point, and it's that almost like a direct correlation. The busier the business went, the less they looked after themselves, and they ended up feeling like shit, looking worse, kind of productivity, focus, all those things taking a nosedive. And you have this horrible sense of imposter syndrome, which we all kind of have to sit with at some point. And it's basically telling you, you can get other people in shape, but you can't do it for yourself. And having had that myself, you're like, I feel like shit about this. So it's kind of helping the guys listening to be like, look, these things are important. This is how you can maybe think about structuring that. And some considerations and mistakes that I've made and I've seen clients make along the way, which may help you avoid those mistakes. So kind of speaking about mistakes, the biggest thing I tend to see and the biggest thing I've done as a mistake is neglect yourself. Like I said before, you end up being busier and busier and busier, and you end up trying to fit your training around it, but that training goes a couple of ways. It either gets neglected entirely, either becomes quite unproductive because you're either rushing through your workouts because you're checking your phone, trying to respond to clients, feeling stressed that you should be at the desk, should be working, but you're not. Or you end up trying to tinker things way too much. As coaches, we're like consistent optimizers, which works great for clients, but when it's ourselves, we end up telling ourselves, oh, I'll just change this in my diet, change this in my training, and ultimately end up spinning your wheels. So you end up in this like perfect storm of shit where you're neglecting yourself, your training's gone to shit, you're not having any structure, any accountability, and then you end up looking worse, feeling worse, and having less output. You're like, great, this is perfect. And we hear the term burnout all the time, but it's that kind of behavior that leads to burnout, and it leads to you not really enjoying what you're doing, but also again feeling like a bit of a fraud. And I've been there. And it's again, I laugh because it's an awful place to be, and I kind of joke about it, and like talk about this thing quite openly. But having seen so many people deal with it, I thought it was just kind of me. I thought I'm the only person dealing with this thing, but it's so many coaches that you see, and it's usually from this same mistake. The other mistake, which is probably less frequent, is people they're trying to train like they are a pro bodybuilder when they're actually not. 2 to 3 hour sessions a day, and wondering why it's actually impacting their business in that regard. But for the most of the part, it's because people end up deprioritizing themselves and end up kind of spinning their wheels and feeling very frustrated about it. So what I do now is kind of focus on the big rocks, and that's a phrase I love, is to focus on what's the thing that's going to give me the biggest return on investment for everything that I do. And that could be from a time perspective, it could be from a programming perspective, an exercise selection perspective, it could be rest pause, it could be nutrition, it could be sleep, whatever that kind of looks like. I'm trying to keep that as big rock focused as I can. What's going to give me the biggest return on investment? So in terms of that, I think let's look at the various elements of programming and what I would do and have done with myself and I do typically with my clients and what's going to impact them. So ultimately, we need to kind of prioritize it first, right? We need to prioritize our training. And for me, that comes with training in the morning. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do for everyone. For me, it works because then I haven't got to worry about it later in the day. I know if I get the session in early and I'm in the gym at 6 a.m., I'll be done by 7. I can start work by 7:30, 8 o'clock, right? And then I'm into my first work block. The last podcast I did was talking about time management, but that works really well for me. That might not work for everyone, but at least the reason I kind of focus on it like that is I don't want to be training in the morning. Like best scenario, I wouldn't be doing that. It's definitely not this kind of I'm going to work while other people are sleeping, David Goggins type shit. Like, trust me, I'd rather be sleeping. But I know if I go gym at 6, then I'm not going to be getting loads of messages. Yes, I've got some check-ins in my inbox, that's fine. But I'm not expecting to come back to people at that time. And if I get it done then I haven't got to worry about trying to fit it in later in the day because it's going to take me away from my work. So I've been sat in front of my desk this morning since 8 o'clock. It's currently 7 o'clock p.m. and it's going to be probably a 9 p.m. finish. If I had not got the gym in this morning, then I wouldn't be able to be doing this now. I'd have to go away during the day. It would break my flow. I'd be kind of dragged from pillar to post, or it just wouldn't have happened at all. So for me, it's like, how can I prioritize this thing? So maybe look about what your day-to-day looks like. Where can I fit this thing within my structure? How's that going to look? And then keeping the training fairly simplistic. So for me, I like an upper lower push pull leg split as a 5-day split. If you're training 4 days a week, an upper lower split. If you're training 3 days a week, upper lower like rotating on a 3-day basis. The reason I like an upper lower push pull legs isn't because there's anything miraculous about a split. I mean, anyone that's followed me and anyone that knows anything about programming, it's just a way of organizing your training, volume, intensity, frequency. But I think it gives you a good balance of all those three things. You can get a decent level of frequency 2 times a week for most parts across the board. And certainly you can get a good amount of volume and specific volume for each body part. For example, if it's just upper lower, I do tend to find that something tends to suffer a little bit because you're not able to get the specific work necessarily. But by having a separate push day or a pull day, you can have a bit more specificity and time dedicated to a single body part that you might not get with an upper lower split, for example. But 4 days a week, upper lower is perfectly fine. If I ever got busier, which I'm sure will happen, and I have to pare back my training a little bit, that works. So again, find a split that works for you, but primarily focusing on kind of whatever you enjoy. Now, the reason I also like a 5-day split is I'm getting out of the gym in 45 minutes. Getting to the gym and training isn't the problem, it's how long I can spend there. So a 4-day-a-week split might take longer per session, which wouldn't work for me. That might work for you guys, I don't know, but have a think about where that's going to fit and is that going to work for you. I've got clients that train 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Doesn't really matter as long as it fits your programming. And ultimately, I tend to go for more of a quote unquote lower volume programming as a coach as well, because look, best case scenario, we always do as much volume as we can recover from. Unfortunately, if you're busy, let's say you've got 100 clients, you've got content creation, you've got loads of things that you're doing, your mental bandwidth is probably quite limited and your recovery capabilities might be limited as well, because whilst I subjectively don't feel stressed, objectively I'm sure that I am, right? Because I've got 3 businesses to run, I've got 100 clients, I've got all these other things, I'm going to be busy, right? And I'm going to feel stressed. Is my recovery capability as good as it was when I was taking a fuck ton of gear and eating tons and not having any cares in the world? Probably not, right? It's going to be a lot less. I'm getting old now as well, right? I've got grades coming through. So it's not going to be quite the same. Think about what it is you can recover from, and typically that's a lower volume side of things, right? Intensity-wise, 0 to 2 reps in reserve. I mean, that's always going to be the case regardless of how you're programming. It's not specifically like online coaches should only do this, but that's going to be the case across the board. I do tend to favour a lot of rest pause type movements, especially on the isolation movements. Myo reps are the absolute king. Did a podcast with Borgay, and he's an absolute G, so check that one out. But they're an incredible resource for online coaches that we can use to save a lot of time. Well, I say for online coaches, anyone that's time strapped, but specifically it's something I program for my coaching clients, because you can get a massive amount of work done with like 70% less time. So if you just, for example, had delts, arms, so say delts, biceps, triceps within a session, and you usually do like 3 or 4 sets per body part on those movements, you might be able to pare that down into something like what might go from 15, 20 minutes of work to like 5 minutes of work, less than. You can save yourself a bunch of time, which can be really helpful. So that's the reason I kind of, how I set my training up generally. And in terms of the movements, ultimately, because I'm not competing, I'm not training for anything specific, it's on a needs basis. I'm picking movements I enjoy, that I can stick to, that I can progress over time like any other movement, but I don't feel like I'm chained to certain movements. I don't do any RDLs because I've got disc issues in my back. I've got multiple knee injuries. Thanks rugby, that really fucked me up. So multiple knee issues that are going to obviously impact my ability to do some lower body work. So I'm kind of working around that, and ultimately I'm getting towards 40 now. Like, training's meant to be enjoyable. I don't want to do stuff just because it's like, quote unquote, the thing you should do. If someone's telling me to do like a snatch grip deadlift, I'm like, fuck that. Not when I'm sat at the desk for 12 hours. Like, I'll pick things that I enjoy, but again, not shying the hard work necessarily. Like, yes, I still program Bulgarian split squats for myself because apparently I'm a sick fuck. But again, use these movements appropriately. Don't shy away from them, but also picking ones that you do enjoy is important. Like, I want to be able to go in and enjoy my sessions. I don't want to dread them at the end of the day. Like, I'm only doing this for me. I should enjoy what I'm doing, not any other reason. Okay. So in terms of programming, I also pick things I'm not going to change. I don't really want to change things. Like I said at the start, it's one of the things you see coaches do is they chop and change their movements quite significantly, and that's not something we want to be doing. If you can keep the same movements, and I use Rep Count as the app, and I just track everything on that. I just don't change the movements. I might have some flexibility with like bicep, tricep, delt work, but keeping all the movements the same is just going to allow you to not have to think. You can just, am I going to progress? I think using a dual progression model where you're doing reps and or load, that tends to just buy you the ability to have progressive overload, but not just chasing reps, chasing load at the extent of it. As we know, and I've talked about this before, if you're seeing progressions in the gym, it's showing that adaptations are occurring, not the other way around. So focusing on good quality training, good quality execution, the adaptations will happen, but giving yourself that dual progression model to allow you to do that is going to be best. Now, that kind of really helps me just find a basic structure, right? Training in the morning, having a very kind of lower volume approach, 6 to 12 sets per body part, high level of intensity, movements I enjoy, makes a big, big difference. And that's something I can progress and I can enjoy, and it becomes my little journey that I stick to and I move over time. And ultimately that gets me better buy-in with clients because they know I'm doing exactly what I tell them to do. I feel good, I'm looking good, and that's a really easy consideration. Obviously, we need to think about the other bits on top of that, like stress management, which, again, if you've seen any of my stuff, I'm always talking about breath work, journaling, steps, all the standard stuff, getting as much sleep as possible. I'm not going to break the internet by talking about any of this stuff, but we all know it's very important. And then with nutrition, I'm a big believer, certainly if you're busy, just have a meal plan. Eat the same thing every day. You can have some flexibility, obviously, with evening meals, which with the family, partner, whatever that looks like. But primarily, I just think eat the same thing every day because I don't want to think about it. I really don't want to think about it. I have a fixed meal plan, and that means I'm not constantly trying to tinker my calories or overthink it. I can just stick to the thing. It just takes away that level of decision fatigue, because the more decisions you make across the course of the day, the more likely you are to make mistakes. I don't want to make mistakes. I just want to go in and do the thing and execute. And I think tracking this like you would for a client is really important. So I do a check-in with myself, I weigh myself every day, do all these things. Now, I'm not necessarily taking check-in photos every week, or do it every 2 weeks just to see I'm on track. But my goals have gone away from like progress at all costs to, am I progressing over time, and do I feel and look good? If I'm doing those things, I'm like, awesome. If I feel like I'm kind of gaining too much body fat too quickly, I'll pull back slightly. If I'm not gaining, obviously tracking average body weight, I'll push things up. But it's a really easy way to kind of program over time, but primarily just, again, focusing on the big rocks with everything. I'm not going to go into the minutiae of like optimal nutrient timing or these other things, because I'm essentially doing that anyway, because I've trained fasted with EAAs and some dextrin. Then I'm having my 2 higher carbohydrate meals post workout, which is bang on from a nutrient timing standpoint anyway. I don't need to necessarily think about it. So it's not perfect, but it's predictable. Ultimately, that's the main thing. And like, if I can keep progressing, as slow as that may be, it's still making improvements to my physique. Now, ultimately, all this stuff just boils back to one thing: is having your own journey, right? So the training itself is something I've always enjoyed. That's the reason I got into fitness, I got into coaching. I'm never going to be a bodybuilder. I would be an absolute terrible bodybuilder. But it's something that I can focus on, that's part of my journey and something that's really important to me. And it's going to have multiple benefits outside that. Not only do I like the way I look, which feels a bit arrogant to say that, but I think if you don't like the way you look, you should probably do something about that. It gives me a level of self-esteem, level of confidence, but energy. I feel like I'm giving a better version of me to my friends, family, loved ones. I'm definitely giving a better version of me to my clients. My clients can buy into that journey because I'm doing what I tell them to do, and they can see me in the gym at 6 a.m. I'm preaching what I always talk about. So I'm practicing what I preach. I think that's really important as well, and I think it helps you become, as a coach, a bit of a better leader. Now, I don't think you need to be an IFBB pro. I don't think you need to walk around with 6-pack abs all year round. I couldn't do that. I know I couldn't. But when I kind of look after myself, everything else flows downstream of that. My energy, my ability to connect with clients, my client results, just my ability to communicate within check-ins, and also that imposter syndrome voice I spoke about at the start, that dies away. And I think that's incredibly important, is when you actually do what you say you're going to do, you can make it work. But I think pick stuff that is easy to follow. So have like your own journey, have that, and again, make those sessions work for you. Like, just to give a little breakdown of what my session might look like a push session, which I'm doing tomorrow morning, it's going to be 2 exercises on a fly, so 2 sets on a fly, 2 sets on a press, 1 set on the press, 2 sets of dips, my rep lateral raises, my rep triceps, and that's done. And I'll do that in 45 minutes to 50 minutes. And that is, again, when people see me leaving the gym for 45 minutes, like, oh, I didn't train very hard, probably right. But it's all I need to do for that time. I'm progressing week on week. The fact I'm progressing shows I'm adapting, and I'm happy with where that is. I can go back and then crack on my work. Pull session looks very similar. It's 6 to 8 sets of back, primarily focused on lats because I don't need any more traps. Leg sessions, again, focusing probably for me, it's always a lot of injuries, what I can do. And again, just tracking these things and progressing over time. And if you are someone who has struggled with kind of that imposter syndrome, maybe your routine hasn't been on point, maybe you are struggling with burnout, all these things, start to prioritize yourself a bit more. Start to look after your journey a little bit more. And maybe some of the stuff in this helps you kind of find that realization of why these things are important, or at least some ideas of how you can prioritize that for yourself. So definitely, like I say, if you're someone who does struggle, please look at implementing that. I would recommend it. And every time I've seen people do this, and even just like top coaches, I see them from afar, like my obviously business partner Joe, once he started looking after his training a lot more, his business improved, his life improved. You look at Callum from Pro Coach, he's absolutely monster of man right now. He's improved his side of things. You look at every single coach I know, that they've all run through the same thing, is when they deprioritize themselves, they feel shit and the business suffers. When they prioritize themselves, not only do they look a lot better, but the business booms and they feel a lot more confident, and everything else works around that. So like I say, when you focus on you, everything else will flow downstream with that. Energy, results, relationships, coaching ability, everything. So always look to prioritize yourself as a coach, and hopefully this episode, albeit a solo one of a very, very average physique enthusiast, at least this might give you an insight how someone manages that alongside the work commitments as well. So I'll catch you in the next episode, guys. Hope you find this one useful. I'll speak to you soon.